Okay, now we move on to our second pillar, motivation. Why? Why does your character want this specific goal? As I said earlier, you can want to rule the world. Your reader is not necessarily going to buy into supporting them to achieve that goal or believing in it. So how do we make the reader believe and feel engaged and rooting for this character? We give them a motivation. The motivation is what makes readers care whether or not the character achieve their goals. Understanding why a character wants something enables us to identify with them and makes us, the reader, invested in the outcome. As an example, Loki in the Marvel movies. If he wants to now take over the entire world, why? Because he's got daddy issues and he wants to prove to his father that he can do it, that he can be a ruler, that he is, or maybe he wants revenge against everyone who underestimated him and didn't take him seriously. He's always been the second son, the lesser son, and he wants to prove himself. Now suddenly, when we understand all of this, we buy into why he wants to rule the world. Stakes. This is an extension of the goal and the motivation. Ask yourself, what is at stake for your characters in this story? What will they win or lose if they either succeed at achieving their goal or fail at achieving their goal? Everyday goals are low stakes. So a character wanting to go and buy shoes in this scene is a pretty low stakes goal. Andrew wanting to deliver a coffee to his boss is a low stakes goal. Those are the kind of things that you can do every day. Overarching story goals need to be much higher stakes in order to carry the entire story. It's not enough just to want a pair of shoes. It's not enough to want to make your boss happy for the day. We need to up the ante for the entire story. So those everyday goals are fine for as smaller scene goals, but for your overarching story goal, you're going to want a much higher stake. And the highest stakes are primal. What do we mean by this? If you've ever seen Maslow's hierarchy of needs, I haven't included it in this presentation, but it is available. I'm sure you can Google it, and it is included in the webinar that I taught previously on conflict. But primal needs are survival. It's things like sleep, breathing, food. A little bit higher up on the pyramid are protection of family, physical security and safety. Our identity, who we are, how we belong, belonging to a community, feeling that we belong. And then right at the top of the pyramid are the very low stakes goals. Maybe as a very first world issue, wanting great Wi-Fi connectivity, that pair of shoes, a decent cappuccino. Those are very low stakes goals at the top of the pyramid. So if your story feels like you don't have a strong enough goal driving it, go back and look at how can you deepen the stakes? How can you make the stakes more primal, more urgent for the reader? Let's look at some examples. I always find examples really help to clarify what we're discussing. And I always use movie examples. For those of you who've attended my past webinars will know this, because there's more chance that more of us will have seen the movies as opposed to reading books. There are so many thousands of books out there that it's often hard for everybody attending a webinar to have read the same books. Okay, let's start with The Bourne Identity, which I finally introduced my daughters to last night and got to rewatch. So if we look at Jason Bourne's goal, his initial goal, in fact, the opening scenes are quite omniscient POV. We watch this body being pulled in overboard out of the sea onto the deck of a ship with 2 bullet holes in his back. So for the reader, the initial question is he going to survive? Will he or won't he survive this gunshot wound? His initial goal is mere survival. Then once he survives and the ship's doctor helps to pull the bullets out of him, he then realizes he has amnesia. He doesn't know who he is. So the driving force is, Who am I? It's the search for who am I? And not just a name, but as the story progresses, the search becomes who am I as a person? As he starts to follow clue after clue, which takes him to a Swiss bank where he finds a whole pile of passports and money in a bank deposit box. He takes the name Jason Bourne, but he's constantly questioning, who am I? What kind of a person has multiple passports and a gun and all this money? And he's constantly trying to find out, who am I as a person? Am I really this person? Am I really the assassin that these clues are leading up to make me believe, and these abilities that I'm discovering I have? So that is the driving goal of the story. But notice that just finding out who you are, he finds out fairly early in the story who he is. But the ultimate question of who am I has to be resolved in a much more deeper way. And how is it made tangible? Well, there are people chasing after him who clearly want to kill him. He needs to find out, why do they want to kill me in order to survive? Again, notice how the motivation is primal. It's identity. It's survival to prevent himself from being killed, to understand why these people are after him. And it's very, very clear goals that are cohesive. They form a cohesive whole throughout the entire story. The whole story hangs off of who he is.